Welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast. Today on episode 257, we are talking about what's happening lately. So let's untangle it. Hi, I'm Hillary, a serial overcomplicator. I'm also a nurse, mom to 3, and the curly head behind Pulling Curls and the Pregnancy Nurse. This podcast aims to help us stop overcomplicating things and remember how much easier it is to keep things simple. Let's smooth out those snarls with Pregnancy and Parenting Untangled, the Pulling Curls podcast. Okay, first off, I've had so many of you guys ask me how I'm doing post-appendix, and I gotta say I'm doing really well. Like, I'm back to 100%. I don't feel any different than I did previous to the appendix, so I gotta give a shout out to bodies and how they heal. I cannot believe that I went from like septic could barely get up to like fine. Like within 4 months, maybe even 3, I was like back to normal. So I guess the medical system does work. Okay, I did an episode last year on how I make money, and that was so popular. I thought I'd kind of review like what things are doing in my business and how some things are shifting, which is going to include the podcast. So stay tuned. First off, I have had some amazing opportunities. I had that podcast sponsored by Laborie, and I love working with them. I'm hoping to work with them again in the future. I've had a couple of sponsorships with the March of Dimes, which is just like a dream come true to work with such a big company that has such a big reach. Really loving that. Hoping to work with them again in the future. And sponsorships, of course, help the bottom line of the business. And so I'm really grateful for them. I'm always looking for new sponsorships, and I'm hoping to get the podcast sponsored more in the future. That being said, Google has just slaughtered content creators, people who write websites, even high quality websites. And I'm looking at this through every niche. That includes food bloggers, great food bloggers who test their recipes. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of food blogger recipes out there that they don't test. They like ask AI to make them a soup recipe, and then they just throw it up online. And then you eat it and you want to just throw up. So great food bloggers. They're getting deranked on Google. Travel bloggers. This is AI writing travel blog information. They're just being demonetized. Reddit's coming up first. So it's been really tough. I have had my traffic from Google just decimated, and that is hard to see. I'm trying to bring it back by working more on Pinterest. I took a Pinterest class, and I got to say, huge disappointment. He was like, if you don't see a big increase, I'll help you. And I've emailed him, and guess what? He hasn't helped me. So I don't know why I take these classes expecting anything. Yeah. I got to say that I take my classes so much more seriously than these business classes take their courses. Like if a couple comes to me and they're like, I'm having a hard time accessing it, or do you have any more information on this? I would be like on it and helping them in whatever way that I could. And these people, I'm paying 5 times as much for this class, and they're just like, sorry. Anyway, I'm just saying, just a big pet peeve soapbox of mine in the industry that I'm in. I have a goal to not take a single class this year because I can't think of a single class I've taken that really has helped me. That's all. Okay, which brings me here to this podcast. We are on episode 257 today. That is a lot of episodes. And I'm not here to like repeat the episodes. I figure you guys can scroll back. A lot of people are like, oh, you should just bring back old episodes. And I could do that. But a lot of times people find my podcast because it's linked in blog posts that are about that. Like I've already talked about a hospital bag. It's linked in my hospital bag post. I talk about the hospital bag all the time, and I link to that hospital bag post in there. And my hospital packing list has not changed. So I'm like, oh, I really don't want to re-record that episode. I might end up recording a new episode on stuff like that, but right now I'm just like, that's too much. And I've got to admit, because our podcast, it just hasn't taken off like I had hoped it would when I started it. We started probably before everybody started jumping on the podcast bandwagon. Late 2019, I think, is when we started it. And I've enjoyed it, but I got to admit, we've had people on this podcast that I did not enjoy having as guests. I get a lot of requests to have guests on the podcast that are basically just ads for companies or people, and I'm just not interested in that. I will say that I did the recording with Danny a couple episodes before about baby child safety, and I just enjoyed recording it with her. I was talking with a good friend who had a lot of insight on a specific topic, and so as I was thinking about that, that's how I've decided to change the podcast. It's going to come out maybe monthly. It'll just be a fun surprise in your podcast player, or you'll see me on social media and you'll know one's available and waiting for you. But my plan now is to come out with longer episodes with friends who are experts on a specific topic that I think will be really helpful for you guys. So I'm hoping to have Danny come back on and talk about how she got pregnant with her first baby. But I know I have a couple already in the works. We're going to be talking about marital roles with one of my favorite social workers. And we're going to be talking about informed consent with one of my favorite midwives. So I'm really excited for these episodes and I hope you guys will really enjoy them. But we are going on hiatus for a little bit of time. We're not really sure when we're coming back. We have some episodes scheduled to be recorded, but I can't keep making this podcast like a weekly chore when it's just not giving us the return in investment that we hoped. I'm hoping that we end up getting some podcast sponsors and then maybe we increase how frequently we're posting. I just don't know. So we will see you sometime in 2025 with some longer episodes. Make sure that you're following Pulling Curls on social media so that you can see when we come up, or follow me on the Pregnancy Nurse. Pregnancy will be on there. Regular home life will be on Pulling Curls. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'm excited for what's going on in 2025. Please join my newsletter because those people will also always get a shout out when the podcast is relevant to them. You can always pick in the Pulling Curls newsletter what's relevant to you. So if you're not interested in pregnancy, like I wouldn't be if I wasn't the pregnancy nurse, you don't need to get that pregnancy information, but I can send you other information that you will find helpful. Also, can I give a shout out to Arizona? Our weather has been so good lately. I'm just trying to relish in it. So I'll see you sometime in 2025. Thanks for joining us on the Pulling Curls podcast today. If you liked today's episode, please consider reviewing, sharing, subscribing. It really helps our podcast grow. Thank you.